To our second reading lesson. Today you will need, for this lesson, your reading workshop notebook, your online one, and then if you would like, you can go to epic.com and pull up the book called When Lunch Fights Back. This is the book that I'll be looking at during our lesson. You do not have to pull this up right now, but you may choose to if it would help you. What we are going to be working on today with nonfiction reading is orienting ourselves to more complex texts. So this means getting acquainted with and better understanding nonfiction texts as they get trickier to read, as they get harder. Our learning target for this lesson today is I can use text features and knowledge of the topic to read nonfiction texts, and so we can orient ourselves to them. There are a few different ways to really get to know a nonfiction book. And a lot of these ways you've seen yourself do before when you go to the library or the bookstore and you try to find new books. So when you're looking at new books, you can look at the title, you can look at the front cover, you can read the inside flap or the back of the book, the little blurb on the back. And these are all different strategies you probably already use as a reader to orient yourself to new books. You can do the same thing with any book, especially nonfiction books. So watch me as I preview and model orienting myself to a more complex or tricky nonfiction book. Just a quick note about today's math lesson. So I'm going to be typing on the online journal. However, you may, again, choose to do this work in your actual notebook with a pen or pencil. So again, you have the choice between typing along with me or pausing me to type or following along in your physical notebook. The choice is yours. As long as you take notes and you send them to your teacher, we are good to go. The book that I'm going to use for this lesson is called When Lunch Fights Back, and the author is Rebecca L. Johnson. To orient myself with this trickier nonfiction book, I'm going to follow along the directions that I'm reading off of my nonfiction notebook. So I'm noticing that I'm going to have to type a little bit about the title and cover. I'm going to have to type a little bit about the blurb on the back and think about the blurb on the back. I'm also going to have to think and type about the sections of these books. So because I'm reading this off of my notebook, I know these are the things that I need to look out for as I'm orienting myself to this book. The first way I plan on orienting myself to this text is by looking deeper into the title and to the front cover. So I already know that this book is called When Lunch Fights Back, and that makes me think of food. Because lunch makes me think fighting back, like maybe my lunch is going to give me a stomach ache or I'm not going to like it, maybe. So I'm already thinking of like food and maybe bad things that can happen with food. Again, this is just me kind of previewing and trying to make sense so far. I don't know if this is right, but this is what I'm thinking so far based off of what I'm seeing. Looking at this front cover, it's not going to let me click on it right now. Oh, I can zoom in a bit. It's this like creepy crab thing. So it's an animal. So I'm thinking something about lunch and food and animals. Maybe animals eating lunch, eating food. So as you can see, this nonfiction book is kind of tricky. I can't even figure it out yet. But this is what I'm thinking so far. So I'm going to take notes on that in my interactive journal. I'm going to continue orienting myself to this new nonfiction text by flipping the book over. Well, if I had the actual book in my hands, I don't on the computer. But flipping the book over and reading the blurb on the back of the book to see more about what it's about. Because usually the author will tell you some pretty interesting stuff about the book on the back. So here's my picture of the back of the book. And this is what it reads. Newts that can pop the rib bones right through their skin. Termites that carry poison-filled backpacks. Lizards that can shoot blood from their eyes. Some animals are good at self-defense. these animals are amazing. Okay. So when I just read and looked at the front cover of the book, I was thinking it's about food and maybe food that makes your stomach hurt, maybe some nasty animal food. But when I read the back, it definitely makes me think it's more about animals and their self-defense techniques. So now I'm thinking these are all animals that are somebody else's lunch, and these are the ways that they fight back against their predators. And the last way that we can really get ourselves oriented to new nonfiction books is by looking at the sections or the contents of the book. So here I'm back at the table of contents, and I'm seeing that there's all these different chapters, and they sound kind of funky. Like chapter 1, Slip Sliming Away. Chapter 2, Concealed Weapons. Chapter 3, Toxic Bubbles. Chapter 4, Master Blasters. These to me all sound like maybe some type of weird weapons. Weird weapon. Weird way to fight back if I'm going back to what I think about the blurb. So maybe these are all like weird weapons that the animals use. Huh. All right, so I am done orienting myself to this book. I feel like I have a general understanding of what it's about, I think. So what I'm going to do is take notes in my online reading notebook. So please remember that your job is to type what I've typed here. That means that you might want to pause now and type what you see on the screen, or you can type along with me as I read it. But here's what I wrote about this book. So far, here's what I understand. The title and cover, so the title is When Lunch Fights Back, and that really makes me think about getting a bad stomach ache from some weird food. The front cover is a picture of a weird looking crab thing, so maybe it's about weird, bad animal food. The blurb on the back makes me think that it might be about certain animals that have cool ways to fight back against predators. And then it looks to me like each section or chapter of the book is about a different animal weapon that maybe types of prey use to fight back. So what I'm going to do during my independent reading time is continue reading this book, and eventually I'm going to figure out if my prediction or if the way that I oriented myself was correct. If it is correct, I'll move a circle and put a thumbs up, and if it's incorrect, I'll put the circle over thumbs down. Tomorrow during our lesson, I will tell you if my prediction was correct or not. All right, once you are done catching up on typing out the notes from today's lesson, you may click to the next slide, slide 7 in our nonfiction reading notebook. On slide 7, you'll see your work for independent reading time today. So during your reading time today, your job is to find a new nonfiction book and orient yourself to it just like I did with When Lunch Fights Back. So on this page, you're going to type the title of your new book, and then you're also going to follow the same strategies of looking at the front and back covers, the title, and the sections of this new book to kind of better get to know it. So the same notes that we typed up here, you're going to type similar notes about your new book right here. So again, your job is to find a new book, orient yourself to this text by looking at the front and back covers, making predictions about how the book will go, and naming possible sections or chapters. And then you will type it right here. Good luck, and feel free to email me if you have any questions.